Well, it's a beautiful day, but winter is coming. So this is the week that we need to start bringing in our tropical plants, but they all need a little maintenance. So today we're going to start with our Lantana topiaries. Later in the week, I'll be dropping the hibiscus, the butylon, any other tropicals that we need to bring in. I'll show you how to cut them back and prepare them. But today it's all about the Lantana topiaries. I have 3 styles I'll be doing, so hopefully yours matches one of these and they'll give you some ideas. But here you can see style 1, beautiful topiary, nice strong stem coming all the way up, and then it just balls out on top. As you can see, I just lifted the plastic pot right out of the concrete one. Another tip I do, so it's nice and easy to bring these in. You don't have to lift 150 pounds. But here we have it. And as you can see, it's gotten pretty big and wide. And there's no way this is going to fit in my house. And that's okay, because we're going to trim this right back so it's nice and small again. Let me show you how to do it. So when you go to prune your Lantana topiary, there's really no rhyme or reason. We're just shrinking it up. It's really hard to mess this up. And all I'm going to do is go along to all these pieces and these branches that have grown out wide, and I'll cut them all back so that it's nice and fit to the stem, and it'll fit right nicely in the corner of my home or anything like that. So, when I'm starting it, here I can look at it. Let me bring in, I'll show you 2 new growth points. That's where I'm going to cut it. So I'm going to bring it in close on this stem, and that way you can see. So here I have my long stem, and you can see right here I have 2 side shoots that have started to grow up, and they're relatively close to the trunk. So I'm going to cut this one all the way back right up until these 2 side shoots, because they're going straight up, so they're not going to go out, and that's where I want to end my cut. Here we will. Here I cut this piece off. You can see that it now ends here, and I actually have 3 growth points, and they'll start to grow up, and if I need to prune them, I will. But that's how I go about it. If they don't have any growth points, like this one, don't worry about it. You can just take it all the way back as far as you want. And so now that we did the close-up, you can see I'm just going to go along on all these side ones, cut them way back to their growth points. If they don't have any growth points, there's really no rhyme or reason to how far in you can cut it. You can cut it all the way in. It's really the size of your home. And what I also like to do is you can tell that on this side it's gotten way over, and on this side it hasn't really stretched much. So it's another opportunity to reshape this tree so that it grows a little bit more uniform. A lot of times I'll be looking for skinny, odd looking ones. This one's at the bottom. It's kind of grown and then grown down. I want to get rid of that. Here we have another skinny one. These guys have kind of shot up pretty far. We're going to cut them back. Remember, Lantana is a shrub, so don't feel like you're hurting the plant. It actually really enjoys this haircut that we give it every year, because it is a shrub, so it's always going to try to revert to that shrub form. And all of this stuff that we're cutting off is going to grow back next year. I'll look on the inside to see if there's any skinny or weak branches like this. We'll just get rid of them now while it's easy to see. And then if you see any branches that have crossed over themselves or have made like a knot, or they're rubbing on each other, you want to get rid of one of those. You don't really like the branches touching and rubbing each other if you can. It's going to make for a much more open habitat in the spring and summer next year. And then just the last thing, if there's any growth points, I would always just clip them, because they're going to, as we trim everything off, there's going to be very few growth points left. So if you have any top ones, they're going to have all the energy and they might get leggy. So if I see any growth points, like this one, doesn't really need to be trimmed, but I'm just going to snip off the top part. And that way it'll stunt it a little bit. And here is what it should look like. Not that much work. Didn't take me that long. But here we have a nice trimmed up topiary. It's much smaller than it was. It'll fit in a corner of my home, nice and easy. But we got 2 more styles of plants of Lantana to touch on, so let's go check those out. And here we have my mother of all Lantana topiaries. This is the one I've had the longest. You can see how big this thing is. and it's never going to fit in a home. So we got some major trimming to do. Follow the same principles that I just showed you. Cut this way back. Now this one, you can see if you look at the bottom, this one has actually even tried to regrow a lot of the shrubs off the bottom. See all these growths coming off the stem and the root ball. So I'm gonna have to get rid of all of those too. So I'm gonna start with getting rid of those and work my way up and just trim this all right back. It's another good opportunity. Really get in on your plant. If you see any weeds, get rid of them. And this one I had to 2 stems. So I got to keep that into account. But you can see this one, see how far it's hanging, leaning down? I don't need that. Don't want that. Another good guide when you're doing this and how far to trim back, if you're having a difficult time figuring it out, is I'll try to use the circumference of the pot. Not that it can be exactly within it, but I'll look down, and if it clears the pot by too much, more than say 6 inches, I'll cut it back. And that way it'll give you a good base idea. Wanted to bring you in and show you right here. You can see how this stem was split by one of the storms. Now it's very resilient. This plant has still grown. It's all green. It didn't affect it, but it's going to be a problem. So I'm just going to take this and cut it all off at the snip. How much I just took off. Oof. Here we can see the plant has really gotten out of control this way. So we need to cut this one way back. Here we have some lower branches that are just going to get longer and longer and eventually just keep falling down and down as the weight increases. So we don't want those. This guy has come all the way over from this other stem. We definitely don't need that. Right here we have a little dinky one. Cut it and show you. When I say dinky, basically what I'm meaning is it doesn't look very strong. It's a very thin stem. It's down below. So we want to get rid of those. And lastly, if you need to redo any supports, now is the time to do it. I'll re-secure them. And again, here's another view. Look how much smaller it is. Nice and easy to fit inside. You notice any yellowing leaves? Very common this time of year with the colder nights coming in. You just pick those off. And as always, it's a good time to deadhead. I do this on a regular basis every week. These are the expired seed pods, so they are no longer good, and you want to pick those off to keep your plant blooming as much as possible. And there we have it. Another butte trimmed up, ready to go inside.